Thank you for watching the Abundant Life Family Podcast. I'm Bill.
And I'm Jen.
We're the Hildebrands. We're helping to build families that last. Today we have a good friend of ours, Roger Sprouse, on with us to talk about how to prepare your kids for the future. So Roger, it's great to have you with us today. We were just talking about how long we've known each other, lifelong friends almost, 35 years almost, and that's really neat. So what is it that you do for a living?
I'm a financial advisor. I've been a financial advisor since '94, so a little over, 30 years now.
You have been one of my examples that I share with kids all the time that are heading off to college. And I tell them, hey, no matter what degree you're in, you may get a job totally different from that.
Boy, that's true.
What's your degree?
Architecture.
And you did design a house.
Yes,
the
I
house
did.
that you lived in for a while. But anyway, just to say, you're in financial planning, and I think God has really blessed you with great knowledge and ability and how to use that. Not only use it well, but use it for Him, So tell me about your family as well.
We have, first of all, my wife, Erin, we've been married now it'll come up on 30 years this year. And so blessed. And then we've got 4 kids. 2 are out of the house and working, and 2 are in college. One's about ready to graduate and come to work at our firm, actually, Grace & Will. So we'll have two of the boys that'll be working with me. That's a great blessing, because Aaron always said, hey, what about bringing them into the firm? And I said, I don't ever want to say that to ask them. If God has it on their heart, they're going to approach me, but I want absolutely no pressure.
Yeah.
Whatever that God has for them, I don't want there to be any pressure of any kind. And so far 2 of them have come and said, hey, I'd love to work for you, Dad, when I get out of college. So.
And that is such a neat feeling, especially, 2 of our boys have been in ministry, and same type of thing. You don't want to pressure them or even encourage, really.
Right.
You want them to do it because God wants them to do it.
That's exactly right.
So that's really neat. Now, I didn't warn you about this, but how did you come to know Jesus?
Oh, that's a great question. When I was raised in the Presbyterian Church. My dad was a Presbyterian pastor, and even though my parents loved the Lord, I guess I feel like the same way. They didn't, we would talk about Jesus, but I remember it this way. So I was 11 years old, and I was always the one when I was 8, 9, 10 years old that would. They'd say, who wants to pray in our group? And I'd usually raise my hand, and I'd pray even at that age. But I remember we were on, it was called Camp Mocan at the time. It's not that anymore. It's in Independence. But anyways, we were there on a retreat. And I remember sweetest lady, her name was Beth Williams, asking me, Roger, when have you personally asked Jesus and been saved? And I said, I've never done that. And she was actually surprised, because she knew what I just said.
Right.
And the whole group was. And she said, do you want to do that? I said, oh, I'm so convicted by, sins that I know I've committed. And so that's where I asked the Lord into my heart, and He's so faithful.
Well, that's been a foundation, and it has shaped your life, especially in the area of finances and stewardship. And so that's one of the reasons I asked you to be on this. We talk about in family ministry something called wins. Walk the path. Initiate God conversations with your kids. Never miss a God moment. That's win, W-I-N.
Right.
But then we also have these mile markers, and there's 10 of them on the website. You can find those on the family page. And those 10 mile markers just help you to see where you are right now in your journey with your family, and how to be on purpose and moving to the next one and looking ahead to what that next one is. Number 7 in those 10-mile markers is preparing your kids for adulthood. And so that's so important right now. How do you prepare your kids? I look at you and I look at your kids, and I feel like you guys have prepared your kids well. What have been some of the important things that you have done as a family to just impact your kids?
Well, particularly, first of all, I would say always making it a focus to go to church
Yeah,
and to go to a great church. You got to be wise in the church you choose.
Yeah.
that's right.
So much today, even more so than I would say it was 30
Yeah.
years ago. That's number one. But and then as speaking, on the financial end, just being able to be open and honest with them in communication. I remember as a child, my grandfather even affected me in the profession I'm in. I just didn't realize that, because he loved to trade stocks, and he'd talk with me about that and so forth. And so I got a little bit of a bug as a 10-year-old. Actually, my brother and I owned one share of AT&T stock, and we thought that was a big
cool.
deal. But we'd kind of watch that and so forth, and it got me a little bit of a bug as a 10-year-old. And when we'd visit him in St. Louis, we'd kind of pull that out and talk about it and stuff, and he'd tell me about what he was doing, as far as a little bit. So that got me a bug. And then my parents, their focus on us was just to say, my parents were very diligent about telling us how they lived debt-free, even though they were a pastor and a teacher.
Yeah.
And to say, hey, we don't have a lot of income, but we're going to be wise in every dollar we have, and we're gonna give to the Lord first before we do anything else. So I remember that upon my heart, that that is a gift they gave me. I just didn't realize at the time, as as a
Right.
young kid, but they did, and they impressed that upon my heart to be able to do that. So I think those are areas where they affected me, my grandparent and my parents, and doing exactly the same thing, because of Aaron and I see that as so important that we give. I mean, I've always given, but I'm going to tell you, my wife, whenever we have a time period where the church is maybe we're asking for a little more, or to ask us to do more, Aaron's number is always bigger than mine. And so to be blessed with a wife that is wants to be a giver too,
Yeah.
that you see together as a couple there.
Yeah.
And if you don't, I think that's going to be a lot of friction, because of you have to say, no, we're going to lay the Lord first. But I want to tell you, when you do that, He will bless you through your kids.
Yeah.
That they will see that our kids knew that was a focus. Because when we gave when they got gifts at Christmas when they were young, we'd still say, hey, you need to give a portion of that to the Lord,
Yeah.
because they don't have income when they're 5 years old.
Right.
But you still say, hey, you've gotten a gift, of $50 from Grandpa and Grandma in cash or whatever. We're going to give a little bit of that to the Lord. And so that's, I think, the very beginning of that for our kids, where we begin to speak that into them. And it becomes natural,
You start at a young age,
very young.
just very naturally, organically having it part of your family in conversation as your kids are growing up.
Yes.
They've watched you support, Compassion International
Yeah.
kid or kids. And not only that, not very many people actually save up the money and go visit that kid.
Yeah.
But you were blessed to be able to do that.
Yeah.
You've taken your family on missions trips as a family.
Right.
How impactful. Those.
Yeah.
Not only that, but even watching, Compassion, you mentioned, given to that to be able to support kids, but watching your adult children do that are barely adult children, just working, barely. Where our oldest son, Camden, I saw him do that, where I knew that he was, giving to one of the kids just like we were. And then to see, again, this is very early on in his working, where I get all the tax stuff and have to file it for them, right? They're not filing their own tax return at that point. But so I get the gifting from, the church when I get to see his, and I go, he's given, and he's given well for what he's receiving. And yes, we've had conversations over the years of that, but we didn't have a lot of specific conversations that year. To see that's such a blessing.
Yeah.
To me, to be able to see that our kids are doing that and taking, because it's, at some point your kids, it becomes their own or it doesn't.
Right.
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 And what a blessing that was. That touched my heart more than any giving we've ever done.
Yeah.
And the biggest impact was not you talking about that. Some parents say, don't do as I do as I say.
Yeah.
But you not only talked about it, you did it. You modeled it for them. And so modeling stewardship.
Yes. I've seen so many times. I've taught, teach FPU, Financial Peace University, for over 20 years in the church. And when I see families that do exactly that, because they'll bring their kids to it, whether they're teenagers or whatever, and maybe their household isn't really in order as parents in that area, but they bring the kids too. But they sometimes are more focused on, well, we want our kids to learn this. And I say, yeah, but it looks like you've got some areas to clean up. And let's focus on that before we worry about your child. Now, that's still important. I'm glad they're here. But how are they going to catch that when you're not doing that? When you're not giving right now? When you're not, but we've got, a lot of bills and stuff. I understand that. But there's something God does with that gift that you set him first, even a little. Even if it's just a little. If you haven't given, give some now. Just a little. And God will bless that decision. Give a little more. God, because people will say, I don't know how we're making it, but we're starting to give. But again, they'll bring their child and they'll say, hey, we want them to learn this, but they haven't done that yet. And so you've got to do that now. So I think that's so important to say as parents, are we doing what we want our children? How do we want them to look? Well, we have to be that model for them.
Yeah.
If we're not, and you expect otherwise, it's highly unlikely.
So Financial Peace University that you just mentioned, I know that was pivotal for Bill and I early on,
We're both spenders. Neither are savers.
I don't even know if we're spenders. We were not given the gift that of finances, but we want to learn. And so Financial Peace was so good for us, to learn how
Give a system.
to be debt-free and to stay debt-free.
That's right.
And to still be generous with everything that God has given us. So did your kids go through Financial Peace University? And is that given to students? And
yes, so there is a student version of that, and all the kids went through that.
Okay.
Did you teach it?
I didn't teach that.
That might have been a little more difficult.
Well, I think that's good.
That's a great thing.
Maybe at first they took it where I wasn't teaching that part.
Right.
But they did take it. Actually, they've taken it probably 3 times. They took it when it was the junior version, which I didn't teach. They've taken it twice. Well, some have only taken it once, but here's the requirement. So when they're teenage years, somewhere probably about high school years.
Yeah.
Let's call it 14 to 18.
So,
They need to take Financial Peace, the adult version, and to do that, I think, in my opinion, where they get the kind of the landscape. Now they're starting to understand money a little bit when they're 15, 16, maybe have their first job, and how expensive things are. And boy, things are expensive these days.
Yeah.
And then so let them take it then, absolutely. But then, like for instance, our oldest, he's taking it again. Well, why did he take it again? Because he got engaged. See, it's different when you take it as a 15, 16-year-old compared to being, now I'm engaged and I have to be able to work this out with a spouse and to be able to go through it then. Entirely different. And they catch different things and they're at a different spot in life, maybe 5 years later, or whatever age that is. So that, in my opinion, needs to be a requirement or something like Financial Peace University, where they take that as a couple during engagement.
Do you know of other options outside of Financial Peace that you could offer to people?
Yeah, I mean there are a lot of different programs out there. Crown Financial is probably one of the well-known ones. Additionally, there's Ron Blue. You might want to look him up, Google him, and he's got a lot of programs and so forth as well. So that'd be a third one. Financial Peace is nice because there's so many of them. I mean, it's like you could take it online and really starting almost any week. And that's the nice thing about if somebody said, well, they're engaged right now and we want to take this right now as a couple. as a family, you can go on their website and find something starting very soon, even if it's not in your area, which probably is in the Kansas City area, which we sit now, but even all over the nation, you can figure that out very easily. So it's more opportunities, I guess, would be the thing about the Financial Peace University.
That's good.
And as you tackle thinking about as parents, you think about what do we need to do as parents when our kids are little? And we've kind of covered that, setting, modeling what we want our kids to do, just praying for them, being intentional, being generous. But what about a little bit of the nuts and bolts of, should parents be putting money away for college? Like thinking about college, career,
right,
those kinds of things. What would you advise?
Well, I would say this. First of all, depends on where you're at. I would say this first, that if you feel like you can do that, you should. Okay, but your child can go to college regardless of what you've done for them.
Yes.
Okay, meaning if you say, well, we can add to our retirement, or we can add to our child's future plans for college or something like that. Is retirement for us or college for them? You have to choose retirement first.
Okay.
Meaning, if you say, well, we only got this much in the budget to make that happen. But if you have both, then yes, you should do that. Let's talk about that. But I first wanted to state that if you feel like as a family, we can either do like the 401k at work, or our kids plan for college, that you do retirement first. Okay, and then if you say now we've got enough to be able to do that other additional things, because by the way, grandparents sometimes want to join in on this.
Yeah.
So talk to them about that. If they're in a place to be able to give towards that. Some grandparents are, and they're very excited about that. Some grandparents are, some are not. But you got to know your situation. But let's talk about some different ways. So one thing is a 529 plan is an educational type of savings plan that I would recommend you look at. Okay, so if it has to do with education, by the way, it used to just be for college. Now they allow that to be used K through 12 and college.
Okay.
And there's some tax advantages for that based on your state. Google that. But the bottom line there is what do you mean? What do you mean K through 12? Well, let's say you said we want our child to go to a private school, and maybe a Christian school or something like that. Well, you can use that giving you've done to the 529, or the grandparents have, or anybody else, as a matter of fact, uncles, aunts, and so forth, to when they add to that plan, to be able to use it K through 12 now and college as well. So you can use it all that different areas. So for education purposes, 529 would be my the first thing I think that you'd want to think about there. Now, if you just want to give financial gifts that are not specific to college, you can do what's called an UTMA or an UGMA. Which is basically a Universal Transfer to Minor Act, is what an UTMA stands for. Again, you can Google that, but the bottom line is that's something that's a lot more options. It's not just education focused. Okay. And so that would be an option. And then the third option, practically, is some people put it into a Roth IRA for the child. Now, let's talk about that. That one's got some more details. Let's try to keep it simple. The bottom line is, your child has to be working to be able to add to a Roth IRA. So you can't just go, hey, we've got a 5-year-old child, or my grandchild's 5, and let's put it in a Roth. The other ones you can do that with. This one, they have to have some type. Now, even if that's just shoveling snow and mowing lawns and babysitting, that's working income. So if they're 14 doing that, or 12 or whatever, they can add that much. So like if they made $2,000 this year doing all that, $2,000 can be added to the Roth, okay? Even if the parents did it. They could give that money, but the child has to make that income. And certainly for a 19-year-old or something like that, then at that stage, you definitely want to talk to them about, hey, start adding to your Roth. So it's part of the conversation of, we give to God first, okay? And then we also save. And by the way, let me back up for a second. Earlier, when I said, about, the kids getting a gift at Christmas or for birthdays, we actually did all three, meaning we would talk to them about, well, out of this $100 you got from everybody this birthday, we're going to give $10 of it to the church. We're going to take at least $10 of it and put it in your savings account down at the bank. And then you can spend the rest of that.
Man.
It's the 10-10-80 rule.
Right.
Which is you give to the
Lord first. Yeah.
then you put for yourself and for savings for the future, for rainy day funds, at least 10%, and then you live on 80%, regardless of what that amount is. Meaning whether you make this much or this much.
Right.
If you use that same percentage all throughout your life, just as a general easy rule, you're going to find that the Lord will bless that.
Wow.
That's really good.
It is so good. I know that we have come to you several times asking for advice, and we appreciate just how you keep it simple, and it has been so helpful to us. I have to add to the piece of, you have done so well teaching us and watching you with your own kids, but it's also been for Bill and I being on the mission field and watching the Lord move so powerfully when it comes to our finances, and watching him and trusting him by staying debt-free, when there was a need. It was amazing to watch how God used his people to help us financially over and over and over. And even that brings such peace. And so I think that's a key element is you can have all those things and put things in the Roth, and I don't even know what I'm talking about. But I do know that God provides so powerfully when we are obedient in doing the things that he asks us to do. And so I think we have seen that over and over in our lives, and seen God provide financially in powerful ways.
The interesting thing from our point of view, because you guys went out on the mission field and did it right in Africa.
Yeah.
And we were so excited to be able to give to you guys.
Right.
That's a blessing to us to give to you as you were out on the field, right?
Yeah.
In a foreign country because of, we have traveled a lot, but I've never so far felt that hey, I want to be the missionary.
Yeah.
But boy, the Lord's blessed us to be able to give to not only you guys, but many other missionaries. Yeah. And here's the thing about that. I remember so often people in financial peace that come in and they'll say, boy, we would really love to give to this, or to this or this, but we just can't do it. And the thing I always say is, I hear you have that heart, but why can't you do it? And I already knew the answer, but they have to, and to realize the answer to that is debt. Mm-hmm. Debt keeps you from being able to do so many things. Mm-hmm. Like the Bible says, the borrower is slave to the lender.
Mm-hmm.
That's right.
Yeah.
And so it takes some time to get there, but it is such a blessing to be able, when a need is there, to be able to be one that meets that. And say, yeah, we can give to that. Mm-hmm. But the biggest reason is because of the debt is not there. And you have to make that make it such a thing that you hate debt. My mom always said you don't want to hate many things in life, but one of the things you can hate is debt.
Yeah, for sure.
And if you have that feeling, then you won't go into debt, or you'll go out of, no, I can't do that. I can't, I'd love to get that 85-inch screen, but the one we have that's 55 inches still works.
Yep.
Right.
Yep.
But it's those decisions instead of, but they said they can finance it for the next year free. No, that's still going to be debt. And if you can't pay cash for it and you're not doing the 10-10-80 rule, then those are adjustments you need to make, because the Lord will bless that decision as well. Meaning to be debt free, to be able to give to folks like you that are on the mission field, and that's such a blessing to be able to do that. Not everybody's called to the mission field, but we're all called to be partnerships with folks like you have been.
Well, financial peace was so instrumental in getting rid of debt. We had debt. We couldn't leave the country and live overseas until we had gotten rid of that debt. And so God used that to really impact and change our lives. And to be honest, we've never been in debt like that ever again. So it's really helped to change things. But there's going to be people listening to this, watching this, they're facing debt. And so FPU, Financial Peace University, is one of the most powerful tools that they could use to get out of debt and learn to conquer that.
Yes.
Is there one or two other tools? You mentioned Ron Blue.
Yeah.
Crown Financial.
Yeah. So, well, as we're revamping at church, what we're going to teach on, and Ron Blue's course is going to be one of those that we're intersecting instead of financial peace. So I'll mention that. It's coming soon.
Okay.
As a new part of the A Life. And so we're working on that, and it'll be revamped and be brought out probably late this year.
Okay.
And 2025, late 2025, I would say mid to late. Which I'm really excited about because of FPU focuses on the nuts and bolts. But as far as the heart, it touches on that, but it's not in depth there. Ron Blue's work, he goes into he's got a great book called God Owns It All, and it's a workbook actually. But in any case, I went through that looking at other options to financial peace, and it really even touched my heart. It challenged me. See, it's the type of thing that I think even a pastor like Pastor Phil would still be challenged by that book, because of what it's talking about is not just the nuts and bolts of how you get out of debt.
Right.
Because you're going, well, I'm already there. We are so bombarded as Americans with, wanting more and more and more. Why? Because we're advertised every day.
Right.
I mean, just clicks that are right in front of us, and they've got this and that and so forth. And it's really, does God own it all in your heart? That's what that goes through. And
That's right.
And so it even challenged me, where financial peace, to be honest, doesn't, when I teach it, probably not overly challenging.
Right.
Boy, that did. And it's more of, does God own it all in your heart, in each and every day? And so I think that's why I'm excited about that new revamping of what we're going to put out there, because anybody in the church, not just folks that need to get out of debt, I think are going to be challenged by that type of teaching.
That's awesome.
So good.
So what we need to do as parents is to model stewardship.
Yep.
Yeah.
Model it well, but we can invest for our kids and with our kids.
Absolutely. So, and you should, and for yourself, for your own retirement and so forth. Just like Joseph stored up for the for Egypt.
That's right.
In the same way, you've got to be wise to store up for days that are not as maybe as great as other days where things are going really well financially.
That's right.
Because there's going to be a day maybe where it's dry.
Right.
And and you need to have stored up for those time periods when God is blessing you a little more. And so I think that's why you want to do all of those. Give first, then look towards your future retirement for the kids and so forth, for theirs, for education, giving, adding to that, and then live off the other 80%. And if you'll do that, God blesses that type of individual.
That's right. So thank you so much for being with us today, Roger. I appreciate it, taking time out of your schedule. And what we've talked about has kind of scratched the surface, but we can encourage people to go deeper on all of those different things. You've given us some great resources. Thank you.
Thank you.
My pleasure.
Let's close in a word of prayer.
Please.
So, Lord, I thank you for bringing us together today. And I pray that we've brought hope as well as ways that people can dig in deeper and get help financially. But help us to prepare our kids for financial freedom, for their future. We love you, Jesus. Amen.
Amen.
Thanks for joining us for this episode of the Abundant Life Family Podcast. If you found this helpful for your family, hit like and subscribe below. And feel free to drop a comment or question below. To learn more about the Abundant Life Family Ministry and the 10-mile markers to help you win at building families that last, go to our website at livingproof.co/family.